A recipe?
No. Oh, God, that's right. I didn't do that either.
A blacklist.
No. We didn't do that. Or Notebook LM.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Because I didn't bring my laptop. But we made this pick just a couple days ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Last minute, I would say. Kind of.
So I'm going to have you comment a little bit on this because this is not a larger release movie. This is part of the Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Cinetopia Film Festival.
Okay.
Not the Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Oh, see,
They're different.
I keep confusing these. I thought they were. When is the Ann Arbor Festival?
That was like a few weeks ago, I think.
And Cinetopia runs on the heels of that.
I guess so, yeah.
Okay. But it's a separate festival.
Completely separate.
And like, what do they highlight, or is it just
Cinetopia films from all over the world, all kinds of different movies.
So the one we're going to talk about today is called "How to Build a Library."
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And you heard about this through your friend who was a sponsor?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I found that, this is quiet. There's nothing coming through.
Really?
Yeah. That's better.
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, that's better for me. Sorry,
that
my
was
headphones.
your volume. Yeah, back up a little bit.
Okay. So the Cinetopia Film Festival schedule came out, and this movie wasn't on my radar necessarily, but then a friend of mine
to this for a while,
was sponsoring this movie. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like maybe 10 years.
Okay.
Since it started.
And we met your friend who sponsored, who was, and I didn't understand this, but I guess sponsoring a movie is kind of like championing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of just like, what is, because what's your friend's name?
Tammy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not really a plug, but like Tammy sponsored this movie by, like, how does that work?
So we're both members of the Michigan Theater downtown. We have different levels of membership. And she, sponsoring a movie means that you're putting money behind it for the theater to show it. They already have it to be shown, but she's contributing money to it to sponsor it.
I know, but does that mean like it gets additional? Like, what does her sponsorship pay for? Do you know? Does
Honestly,
it pay for,
I really
the
don't.
Behind
I think
or?
it just. I don't know where the money goes that she donates. If that's what you're asking.
But it highlights it in some way.
It highlights that she donated. But
it's already part, even without her donation. It's
already part of it. Yes.
It's already part of the festival.
Mm-hmm. But before the festival happens, usually if someone wants to sponsor a movie, and in Tammy's situation, she has sponsored movies before. I think she almost always sponsors a movie. Mm-hmm. And so she, emails the Michigan Theater and says that she would like to sponsor a movie, and then they send her a few titles that she might be interested in. And she chose How to Build a Library this year.
And does she just decide how much money she's going to put towards it, or do they say, we want X number of dollars?
Honestly, I'm not really sure, because this year versus years past, it was a different amount. And so I'm not sure. I'm assuming that she is the one who makes the call about how much she wants to give. Yeah. But I really don't know. But it was different this year, so I'm just not sure about all the behind-the-scenes details.
I would be interested to have. I couldn't tell if she was interested in like talking on the podcast, but like it'd be interesting to talk to somebody who actually does that, who like picks a movie and gets behind it and what getting behind it entails.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be interesting.
This isn't normally the kind of movie I would have gone to see, but it did bring me in because I worked, as you know, for Western Michigan Waldo Library when I was in college. Mm-hmm. I worked all 4 years, and I loved working at the library. Mm-hmm. But our school library is not sort of, but it is kind of deconstructing itself because all of the stacks of books now are being digitized and the stacks are retracting. Like if you go into the library, it used to be wall-to-wall books on 4 floors, and now I think 2 floors have stacks of books in
Yeah.
the back.
I
And
remember.
everything else has been, like, all the bookshelves are gone. They put a cafe in
So
there.
weird.
It's weird. Like, you couldn't even bring food and drink in there. And now they have
Not
a
at all, I know.
They have a cafe in there.
Most libraries have cafes, which I find very strange. Because,
It kind of detracts from the ability to just study. And
I think so.
it's weird. Last time I was in there, I usually visit the library or Western Michigan once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever get a chance to go into the library, it's weird walking around because it's not the kind of quiet. It's not fully quiet like it usually was when we were in school.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more. It's almost like the books provided this insulation
Yep. Mm-hmm. I would
to
agree.
the outside world. It's
Mhm.
like this. I know there's a way to say this. Like, there is all this, there's just stacks upon stacks of knowledge that has been accumulated, and there's almost like an unspoken agreement that you have to respect it and be quiet around it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if people are wanting to absorb anything, if they're trying to study for something, or if there's something they have to look up, I feel like, especially when we were in school, the library there was just a couple of places you would study: the student union,
Mm-hmm.
your dorm,
Dorm
or
room,
your apartment,
Mhm.
or the library, and that's it. And now it's so many of the books are gone, and it's really kind of an empty building with, like, rooms. We're in the Ann Arbor Library right now,
Mhm.
in essentially like a carrel,
Mm-hmm.
like a study carrel that that professors use, and the whole library at Waldo and Kalamazoo is kind of becoming like that.
Yeah.
There's nothing to it. Like, there's all these stations for internet to pull stuff up, but, like, if you would have said to us when we were in college, during your lifetime, as you go into middle age,
The library's not going to be here like this anymore, the way you remember it.
the way you absorb information is going to be different.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what you're talking about. How is it going to be different?
There's, like, these terminals here that, first of all, they're going to be 1/8 the size. They're going to be flat, and you're not going to need all these books. And the idea of I've heard kids say, just walking around this campus, why would I read a book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a way
I
that
could see that.
it can be digitized and I can listen to it. And it's kind of a hard argument, you know?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Because they have, audio.
You
excuse me,
okay?
audio books and their Kindles and things like that. That's what I was trying to figure out.
I didn't even consider that when I was in college. Like, you could have a whole library on a little tablet.
Oh, absolutely not. And now
Oh.
you could have it on your phone. It doesn't even have to be on a Kindle or something big or to hold in your hands.
I feel a little guilty because I was just saying this to you yesterday, that I have had a book since when I graduated from college. I can't remember where I got it, but somebody gave me a copy, or I think somebody gave me a copy of Gore Vidal's Hollywood, because I was moving to Hollywood, and I wanted, it was too dense for me to really appreciate when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get that deep into it, and it's holding up Bears of Honey that I'm decrystallizing right now, and I know that it's a book I want to read because he's a revered author.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I'll flip through the book. I think if I can find it on audiobook, that's how I'll absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
To even admit that, like,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a personal choice. Like, I'm not able to, like, just sitting and reading. I know that my attention span is between 15 and 30 minutes, and then I gotta stop.
Yeah.
I've heard that's quite common, but for people who, like, you see some professors around here who they can just read a book for hours. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my mind wanders.
Yeah, Mama's like that. I can't. I don't read books. I don't have the attention span for that. I'm also a very slow reader, so it takes me a lot of time. So if I find a book that I really want to read, most likely it's not going to happen because I don't have, the way I look at it is I don't have the time for it. And then when I do have the time, it's like at night and I can't focus on reading a book. I wish that I could.
I feel like we're kind of making the anti-case for libraries, and yet they were such a crucial part of like my development. Like
I loved the library.
The
library that we're in now, I've been coming to since I was a little teeny tiny girl.
When I think I told you I took a filmmaker's workshop when I was in high school. And I didn't know this until I was in it. You remember I told you my friend Rich reached out to me, and the guy who ran that program had passed. But the person who referred me into that program, it was my junior or senior year of high school. No, it was junior year. The person who referred me into that was a librarian. And like I never even got a chance to thank her for that because I didn't even really know her that well. But she just knew that I had an interest in film and television. And she mentioned it to, I think the way it worked is, I think she might have mentioned it to my teacher, Mr. Christensen, Mr. Christner, and he gave me this flyer. I was like, I'm going to check this out. And then I found out when I was actually in it, there was John Prusak was the guy who ran this program. There was a guy who worked as a cinematographer with him, this guy Vic Spicer. And then there was another person who was involved. And one of them said, hey, this lady at Brighton High referred you to us. And I was like, that's the librarian. So, and then when I got into college, I worked at Waldo Library all 4 years. I think the reason why I'm a little like, I wonder if this happens to people as you age. Like, you have a particular experience either in a place or in a building or with a group of people, and you almost long, you kind of feel bad for the following generation, because you're like, you're going to miss out on this. You're going to have your own experiences that are going to be personal to you, but this had meaning, and it seems to me like you might miss out on that.
Because it won't be the same for them as it was for you.
It's totally different. Yeah, it's completely different. And this is a roundabout. What we're kind of talking in circles around this movie, but these women who are the subject of How to Build a Library had a very they came from publishing and writing, and their desire to cultivate and grow this library in, where were they? Nairobi?
Yep.
I think I would think that was, I would think you would find a similar type of story, just having a background in literature and writing and being involved in the literary scene. What you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure.
Now again, we just saw this, and it was released this year, so there's not a ton of press around it.
No, there's not. It's just been making the festival circuit debut. But from the Internet Movie Database, it says 2 Kenyan women transform a dilapidated, junk-filled library in downtown Nairobi into a hub for the city's citizens and creatives. So that's a very brief synopsis. Thank you. About the movie. That's my train of thought. I would say that there's more to to it than that. Somehow they discover this old building that used to be a library but hasn't, I believe, been in use by anyone for decades.
Well, there's a lot to unpack from this movie.
Well, the government
in a short podcast, but it's a Kenyan/American documentary, and the theater of the subject is the Macmillan Library in Nairobi. And part of our conversation has to tilt towards Nairobi was, I guess, a British colony, and there was decades of colonization, and the whites owned everything, and they suppressed a lot of, I mean, anyone who pays attention to, the social conversation about what's happened between black people and white people should know that, God, I don't even know where to start because I'm not a historian.
Well, it just wasn't good. I mean, the people living there had a way of life and a way they did everything. And then
this is such a big thing. I can't wrap my head around it.
No, it's huge. And it's huge all over the world.
Yeah.
But in this one particular movie and country and circumstance, well, that came out not well. We're talking about this one particular colonization and circumstance, and these people who were already living there already had a way of life and a way that they did everything in their own culture and all that stuff. And then these white people came in and were like, this is how we're going to do everything.
Yeah, they do what they do. They colonize and they organize in their own fashion, and they control the flow of resources out of the country, and what the indigenous people do get is pared down in such a way that white people were prioritized.
In a country that was not theirs.
Yeah, it wasn't theirs. And again, you look at civil rights in this country and it's, holy crap, this happens all over the planet. The library was, like you said at the very beginning, it looked kind of just a dilapidated building. There were rooms in it that had bookshelves that were falling on top of themselves and just kind of piled on top of themselves like rubble. And there were very, very old bound magazines and newspapers that hadn't been opened in, you could tell, like decades. They were covered with dust. And what are these two women's names again? One was
women.
Yeah, one was a publisher, one was a writer.
Angelina Wachika.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
And writer Shihiro. I'm not.
Sound it out.
Even going. No. I don't.
Try it.
Koinaji. That's not.
We tried. Koinaji.
They just referred to them in the movie as Wachiko and Shihiro.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for, because they go by their first names in this. They kind of come in and it's funny because when you read the Wikipedia on it, they make
one lady's last name and one lady's first name.
Okay.
But anyway, sorry.
When they come in, they kind of address this as, this is how I got it in the film, that the Macmillan Library had two satellites. And I don't know if you know the names of those. Kaiolani was, I think, one of them.
One of them, and then
Marataga or
something. Mara something. I don't.
See if you can
look.
See if you can
I'll
find it out.
Yep.
But in Wikipedia, it said this was their third project, and the way it seems in the movie is that Macmillan is the primary. Yeah, the Macmillan is the primary, and the other two are satellites. But the other two are outlying district libraries of Nairobi. One's east, one's west, I believe. And they're a little bit smaller, but they need to be, they're the same kind of thing. Like, there's a couple of patrons in there, a couple of kids, but it's not really used as a place for learning. And our two ladies, even when they decide to clear out the Macmillan branch, they're able to hire people to just dispose of the debris. And this is really a ground up effort, grassroots effort. The people that they have in there sweeping the floors and pulling the stacked rubble out, they're just wearing flip-flops. And there's broken glass
and shorts
everywhere.
And t-shirts.
Yeah, shorts and t-shirt. And this isn't something that, I don't know how they did this, but like over a year or so, they drum up all of this community, it wasn't just community support. They got help from the governor. Ultimately, they got help from the governor, but they got governmental assistance to start remodeling and start building, building stacks, building shelves, creating an inventory of books and reference materials, and employing. I think the libraries already had librarians, but a little bit of a conflict develops between one of the girls they hired to create an organization system and the librarians themselves, because for anyone who doesn't know, librarian is it's a straight up profession. And I don't remember the name of the gal who our ladies hired, but she did some cataloging with some of the digital stuff. And I think it seemed like they were trying to push that organization system onto the librarians. They're like, Dewey Decimal System is what
the
we
way
use.
Yeah,
and it's what the entire planet uses.
Yeah.
We're not. It kind of seemed like, I'm sure this lady was smart, but she's like, we want to use our system. She's like, this is just going to mess up everything.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're standing firm on this. This is our thing. So it was kind of neat to watch this interaction between. Tell me their names again, because I'm so bad with African names.
Wachuka
and
Shiro.
Shiro. Shihiro or Shiro?
Shiro. S-H-I-R-O.
Their grand plan was just to redevelop these libraries and make them, to bring people into them, have them be places of learning. Now that the white colonizers have just kind of forgotten about them and Nairobi has become predominantly black, they wanted to revitalize these libraries and make them places of learning for their community.
Well, also a small side note, when the Macmillan Library was being built in the 1930s, it was built by colonizing people, and it was only used for those people.
Oh, right.
So the people who lived in Kenya couldn't enter the library at all. And so now, not only do they want to make this library, like you said, for the people who live there, they have to decide whether or not they're going to change all the systems that were in place before an upgrade, or if they're going to stay with what they were using back in the day.
And I think that was kind of the funny thing is the librarians, who are all black, are like, Dewey Decimal System is a bedrock system for organization for a library. It has nothing to do with white colonization. This is what we use. This is what we use.
This is how we do it.
I think this organizational cataloging person was like, this just represents the white takeover. And the librarians are like, don't politicize this.
Yeah.
It's an organizational system. This is what we're using. And what was interesting was, you know what it seemed like to me? It almost seemed like a conversation between rationalists and religious people, like religious fervor. And the rational people were like, "This is absurd. We're doing it. We're we're not being swayed by public sentiment about anything.
Yeah.
This works, and we're keeping it. And what I particularly found interesting was that the librarians are kind of like the doctors of a hospital. They're like, you can't
run the library without them.
Yeah. And it was interesting at that one point in the movie where he's the chief librarian.
Yeah.
He just put his foot down. What was his name? Was it Joshua or?
Honestly, I don't remember.
I can't remember it either. We're terrible. See if you can find his name in that. But
again, we did see this movie less than 24 hours ago.
He put his foot down and said, "We're not changing anything." And I think that created a little bit of, they didn't build the movie for drama. It's a documentary, so the drama is a little more. It's not played. It's just you can tell it's there, but they don't dress it up or embellish it. Go ahead.
It's going to be hard to find his name.
No.
Because there's hardly anything about this movie online.
Really kind of a shame because we don't typically talk about movies unless we enjoyed them. But you can't really give away the whole documentary, but
which I did enjoy this movie. It's not to say that I didn't.
When they first started out, they had no help whatsoever. And of course they were going to find or face difficulties. And this was a massive undertaking.
Massive.
They were going out and requesting public assistance in a African nation, a governmental assistance in a government that changes hands, sometimes in 6 months, sometimes in 2 years on a regular basis. But not a scheduled basis. Sometimes,
overnight something happens, maybe.
Yeah, they had a governor who wasn't really supporting the library, and then 6 months later, that person's out, somebody else new is in, then they have to start the process of
all over again,
lobbying the government all over again to get money to fund this place. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting is when they first started out, they had nothing, and these buildings were in shambles. And by the end of it, they're having fundraising galas, and the governor is there, and I don't want to give away who the big donors are and who shows up at the end. But what was funny was when the people who showed up at the end were the big kind of reveals of like patting them with Shuko and Shiro on the back for actually getting this going. We're responsible for all the colonization to begin with, or we're part of the colonizing force. Yeah, that was the end. That was the end of my point. Sorry. Yeah, you looked like you were waiting to say something.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that it was, like we said before, it was a massive undertaking, and I think that, I should say, if I was in this situation, and this is something that I wanted to participate in, create, change, that kind of thing, that I would not know quite what a massive undertaking this was.
I don't think they really...
And that's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to speak for them, but I think that they didn't know how involved they would actually need to be. Because I think both of the women quit their jobs and were doing this full time.
Yeah, I'll give a snap of Wikipedia here. Kenyan publisher Angela Wachuka and writer Shiro Wanjuku. I see where you're having... I guess Shihiro is her first name, and then she goes by Wanajuku Koinaji.
That's what I think I said too.
That's what I'll try. Quit their jobs and start a nonprofit organization named Bookbunk, and as their third project to restore the famous neoclassical Macmillan Memorial Library in Nairobi. So here's the thing. I think Wikipedia gets it a little wrong. I don't think it was their third project. I think that Macmillan Library was the primary, and the two satellite libraries came part and parcel with it. But they all got revamped. Along the way, local politics, and they navigate local politics and confront Kenya's colonial past.
I think they're still working on finishing and updating completely the Macmillan Library, because I don't think that it's finished. But the other two, I think, are completely, rehabilitated.
The other two were smaller. Macmillan is
A very big building.
Comparatively.
With lots of materials from, I'm reading it, but it says 1901.
It was really interesting.
400,000 books.
Yeah,
Newspapers and periodicals.
They ended up employing a small team to digitize all those. Remember
Were
that?
they putting?
Yeah, because they were putting.
Oh, they were taking photos.
Yeah, they were taking photos.
You're right. Okay,
they were
thank you, I
flipping
forgot.
through those old books.
Huge books.
Yeah, and
They had a team of people working at the tables.
yeah, and there were. Do you remember that? There was that one scene where they said we're trying to get a third of these stacks digitized by the end of next month, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't think we're going to make it." I'm like, well, it makes sense. I mean, if you all these books are so old and they're so fragile, and the papers are hanging out of them, and they have to handle these things with rubber gloves and tweezers, and then photograph them and catalog them, and it just must be a back-breakingly slow project. As far as production goes, Wachuka asked Maia, Lekow, and Christopher King, who were the directors, to document as she and Chihiro attempt to restore Macmillan, with the footage to be posted on their website. Instead, Lekow and King decided to make a documentary following the restoration process and using it as a vehicle to tell a larger story about Kenya. Production took place over the course of 8 years. Wow, this took a long time.
Wow, yeah.
And Lekow and King self-funded it. Geraldine White Dreyfus, is that Jerry Lynn? Geraldine White Dreyfus boarded the project as an executive producer, bringing on impact investors. I don't know who that is. A film producer. She has produced multiple documentary and narrative films focusing on social justice issues, including The Invisible War, The Square, Hunting Ground, Won't You Be My Neighbor, The Great Neck, and On the Record. Dreyfus has been nominated for Primetime Emmys. Roger Ross Williams served as executive producer. The project receives additional support from Catapult Film Fund. And released at Sundance this year. Screened at True False Film Festival in February. And on May 9th, it will have its German premiere, or it did have a German premiere, at the International Documentary Film Festival in Munich. So if you're looking for something that's kind of heart-pounding and electrifying, this is not for you. But if you have an interest in the, this is kind of a layered interest piece.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it would appeal to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Because just between the two of us, I shouldn't talk for you, but I think that we both saw it differently. We were watching it for different reasons.
What? Okay, go ahead. This is
just what I'm speculating.
That's all right. I'm not going to offend me.
I don't want to talk for you, but
go ahead.
I looked at it. Well, initially, I looked at it as going to a movie at the Cinetopia Film Festival, also a movie that a friend of mine is sponsoring, so I'm definitely going to see it.
Yep.
And then I asked you if you wanted to go, and I don't necessarily think that it was a movie that either of us would be drawn to or say, oh yeah, we're going to go see that movie. And I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm just saying, if given a choice of 5 movies, I don't know that I would pick this documentary. And it's not that I don't like documentaries. And then while watching it, I thought, well, I wonder, like, what are you thinking about it? But I also thought, like, I wonder if we're watching it for different reasons, like what our thoughts are about this. Like, I look at it as two ladies who took on this huge project and all the obstacles and hurdles that they run into while trying to continue with their idea.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, because I'm in early childhood education, you know, I'm like, libraries are great places, and especially the two outlying libraries, they were more like child and family centered. And so I think that in a place, I don't know, but like in a place like Kenya, it was like a good place for families to go to like build community. And then like how I kind of thought like maybe you were looking at it would be with a different pair of eyes, so to speak. Like, this is a project that needs help, like with money, and like the government has to help with it, and I don't know. Am I kind of on the right page? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. But I like it when you talk, because I've told you this before when we do this show that
I don't talk enough.
I run on at the mouth, and I feel like I don't like it when you I want that.
You want
like,
more
I want
from
that.
me. Mm-hmm.
I want that. I'm like, there are people who they do this for a living, and it's like, I don't want to say monotonous, but they're just like, part of their makeup is to facilitate these kind of endeavors. Mm-hmm. Like, these women, what you don't really see in this movie, you understand that this happened, but they actually had to reach out and form connections with people in government and have the conversations. We need help with this financially. Where do our needs sit with the government in terms of how do we ask for money? Like, what benchmarks do we have to meet? Like that, even though it sounds very nitty-gritty, boring, and cumbersome, it's interesting to me that someone like navigates that and finds results. It's like, I even find that with films. Like, and there are movie producers that they know how to do this, and like, I've never actually sat down. I would love to sit down with a producer and say, okay, so from concept to actually selling the project and getting money, like, what are the words that come out of your mouth? Who do you call? How do you engage that? Just like these women did.
I was just going to say, exactly, yep.
With the government.
And they had to learn it all, and they had to figure it all out. And, and like you said earlier, too, these people were always changing, so they could...
It just seems like such a minefield of organization and finance, and they had to do their own books for this thing.
I know. Remember that in the movie when she had that spreadsheet out and she was talking about how much money
they're burning through money.
They're burning through money, and then she thought that maybe her partner or whatever missed some numbers, and so the calculations were all off.
They had to submit numbers to the government.
Like,
it was like 300,000 off.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and she's just like, you suck at math. Like, you didn't double check your arithmetic, and they submitted this figure.
We call her Louisa.
They submitted this figure to the government for their funding proposal, and it was way off, like 300,000, like over $250,000 off. So I think that I'm just impressed by anybody that organizes all that and sticks with it. And I feel like, as I'm talking about this movie, it had a way deeper social message. And I don't want that to, like, I feel sometimes whenever I watch a movie or any media piece about how a group has been marginalized or a race has been marginalized. I'll admit it. I've got white guilt, even though I didn't do anything. But there's there's always an argument out there that just because you're associated with this group of people, you are in some way culpable for, which I don't accept. I think that's just, I just think that's ethnic rage thrown at other people. Like, it has to go somewhere, and they take aim with someone who looks like me. I had nothing to do with the Nairobi Library, the Macmillan Library not getting funding.
Right.
But
in the early 1900s.
Yeah,
by the
and
way.
what personally is interesting to me is someone has this idea for a project, they want to take it on, and just the mechanics they go through to execute it, from where they started and where they ended up having who show up at the end to pat them on the back, which jostled the governor to be like, we got to pay more attention to this. Even though the people who showed up were responsible for all the societal and ethnic issues that had happened since the early 1900s or the 1800s forward in that country. And that's what I anchored onto this movie about. But as far as I'm someone who doesn't like being ordered around. I don't like taking orders. I don't like having a boss. And you can have this conversation about any black community or any country that is predominantly black where the citizenry is kind of powerless and they're pushed around by either colonialists or by their government. Just that stuff makes, it just kind of puts me on edge. When I see anyone being like, I have to live in the squalor or in these crap conditions where I don't have access to services because this is what I was born into, and I'm being pushed in that direction by this behemoth that is my country. And that would enrage me. And that's the kind of thing where I find characters like this who just said, we're educated, we have these careers, we know something about this environment, and we're going to change this. And they endeavored for years at it, and even though it's still going on, when you look at it in a movie, you've had success. You've had that's a success. Yeah,
I think it was a huge,
You have to keep. Yes,
I think it was a huge success. All the progress that they had made, it was shown in the movie. And yes, while they might still be working on it, what they did or what they showed us in the movie from start to where they were at the end of the movie was remarkable.
Leaps and bounds.
Yeah,
and I think that's the thing is for a lot of people, anybody. I'm not trying to make this more heady than it is, but if you really want fulfillment in your life, a lot of fulfillment can come from taking on a seemingly impossible task, whatever that is. Whatever it's so big, it'd be great to be able to do that, but it's just beyond me. And then you take that thing on. The one thing that a lot of times you have to reconcile, which is hard for people who have a 9-to-5 job, is that this thing you're going to take on, it is conceivable there will be no finish line ever.
Yeah, that's very hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you go to a job, you do this thing, then you retire. It's not, for a lot of things, when people have a passion, they want to make a movie, or they want to start building boats, or they want to legislate, or they want to change a law. That can be a multi-year, a decade process, and it might not turn out exactly how you want, but you might make progress in the eyes of other people.
Right.
But where you're going to, it might just be you have to resign yourself to, this is kind of my calling to be in this space and make progress somehow. But the idea of a finish line sometimes never comes.
Yeah.
And then when you have, I think that'd be tough for a lot of people to wrap their head around.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it right now, and if it was me, that would be hard. That would be really hard. Because I do need, personally, a start and a finish. Even if it takes a long time in between, I need to know that there's, like, quote, an end in sight.
Well, you know what? I think for these two women, I would bet, I don't know them and we never talk to them, but even if it is an ongoing effort, sometimes just on a personal level, it's nice to hear somebody say, what you have accomplished is amazing. Oh, yeah, okay, that's very nice. I'm not done yet. I'm still working on it, but okay, granted, I know you're still working on it, but if I'm just looking at I got to learn to turn my phone off. If I'm just looking at, I started this thing, and you started at 0, and now you're here, and where you're at here is humongous. That's something to be proud of, and that's something to be revered.
Yeah. Well, and you've accomplished so much. I mean, these ladies certainly have.
I think, and this was not the point of the movie, but it wasn't.
We did go
but like
deeper into.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing. Whenever you take on, I mean, this is a great example because you take on a project that is, you're serving the community. So there's not like okay, I have this thing open now and it's running by itself. It requires life support. I think that's good for people, though, to have a project that doesn't end. I think that's what keeps you young. Like when your project is over.
Yeah, then what's next?
There's always a what's next. And
but if you're working on something that's going to take a long time.
Well, it's like these women quit their jobs. And they said a couple times in the movie, I've never had anything that meant it. I'm sorry, people. It's my phone. It's part of the podcast. We have to reference info, and I didn't bring the laptop. If you're going to... I was saying something profound in my own mind, and now do I really sound stuffed up?
A little bit,
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pollen. I have to take another one of those Claritin.
It's gotten worse as the time has gone on. You didn't sound this way at the beginning.
I think the Claritin is wearing off.
Your eyes are kind of red, though.
Fucking pollen season.
It's a high pollen count today in the area, ladies and gentlemen.
So taking on any project that doesn't have an end in sight, I think you have to mentally prepare yourself for that. I don't know how you do it. It's different for everybody. But I think ultimately, you know what? I'd go so far as to say I think everybody needs something like that. Like even like you as a teacher, I don't know what that would be, but like I've told you this before, the idea of being done. Like my dad couldn't wait to retire, and I think that's because he didn't like what he did. He said he did, but I don't think so. I think that if, and it doesn't have to be a place you go to punch in. It just has to be something that you want to be involved in. And I guess that would be my takeaway for anyone who's listening is that if you, whatever that thing is that like. It's so much different from a job. It requires your time and your effort, but there's something so totally transformative about being involved in something, not that you have to do, but you want to do. And I have met so many people. Like I'll have this conversation about the necessity for this in your life with people at market, and a lot of them
don't understand.
I don't know. They look at me like I'm trying to teach them how to build a stereo in Japanese. It's especially if they're in their 20s or 30s. Like older people, they're like, yeah, I get it. But like younger people, it's like if anyone who's young listening to this, even if it's not your job, you got to have something that like just captures you that you just have to do. And you might spend a lifetime trying to figure out what that is, or you might get lucky and know what it is when you're 8. But you got to do that thing. I mean, figure out how to make money, yeah, but outside of that,
Yeah, but have something else. I see what you're saying.
it'd be interesting to see if these women show up in the news.
Yeah, more than just this documentary movie.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Good Lord, I hate the way I sound. Ugh,
It's not that bad. You're self-conscious about it.
it's gross.
I could see that because if it was me, I'd feel exactly the same way.
The worst.
It's not as bad as you think.
It's pretty awful. We're at 50. Do we have, guys, I'm trying to keep on pace with doing an episode a week. I don't have a, did we do a recipe? Wait a minute. I can talk about the New York strips, which you wouldn't eat. So
Okay, go ahead.
I'll do this one real quick, and I've talked about it at the booth before, but everybody likes it, so I'll just do it real quick here. I had New York strips for my birthday a couple weeks ago, and some friends of ours hosted a little get-together, and we did a grilling. If you are listening and you want a honey-based recipe, this is the one that I give out at the booth for New York strip steak. I'd prefer it if you use my hot pepper honey, but you can use any honey, but the hot pepper works really well. You inject it, use a food injector, and get a New York strip and inject it 4 or 5 spots around the steak. Then submerge the steak in buttermilk, like in a Tupperware container, so the buttermilk covers all of the meat all the way around. Seal it and refrigerate it. And then, this is the part everybody, their eyes bug out of their head when I say this. You got to put it in the fridge and let it sit there for 7 days. Not 5, 7.
A whole week.
When you take it out, salt, pepper, minced garlic all the way around, and then 5 to 6 minutes each side, 550 on the grill. You can cut it with a butter knife. It's so tender. And I did it initially 4 minutes each side, but it was pink in the center, like pink, but delicious. So that is hot pepper injected, buttermilk soaked New York strip steak. Knock yourself out. You'll love it. Do we have anything else?
I think that's all.
Do we have another movie, or do they have to wait?
They have to wait because we have to figure it out.
We don't know yet, so hugs and kisses. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Thanks for listening.